Welcome to Steel Stories by US Steel. In this podcast, we explore the wealth of knowledge from leading industry experts to help you navigate the infinitely developing, renewable world of steel.
Hi, everybody. Today, I have Lorraine Martin, who's the leader of the National Safety Council. I've known Lorraine for quite some time, and her background, her career is absolutely remarkable. You know, I knew her on Lockheed Martin's board because she was the executive officer with, believe it or not, the responsibility for the F-35, and I'm sure you've all heard of that. And she served in the Air Force, and she's been a leader for quite some time, associated with so many aspects, and now providing such remarkable leadership with the National Safety Council. And so, Lorraine, welcome and thanks for joining. I want you to talk just a little bit about your field and about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, thank you, Dave. And it has been an honor to bump into you over the last 10 some years, and just really appreciate being able to join your team here today. As you said, I did start my career in the Air Force. I was given a scholarship, so I was able to have my education paid for by the Air Force, and then served there for about 4 years, doing primarily software-related work, early computer security work, some literally AI. Back then, it was called Expert Systems. And then from there, left the Air Force and joined the Lockheed Martin Corporation. And also did a lot of software-related work initially, but then got into more hardware and software. And as you just alluded to, eventually was responsible for several of the aircraft programs at Lockheed Martin, which are definitely complex and exciting. And really was an honor to be able to be part of that. It's not a very logical career. Software engineers don't often end up in, on production lines and at some point being the actual general manager for 3 different aircraft at the corporation. But really appreciated the opportunities that Lockheed Martin gave me, the breadth of experiences. I did that for 30 years. So I retired. I'm not retired, but I retired from Lockheed Martin after 30 years. And asked myself, what can I do to give back, literally? And giving back to me was taking the tools that the corporation put in my pocket, all those different program management tools, safety tools, how to help people, realize their career goals, and where could I give that back? And I found the National Safety Council. And actually, the U.S. Steel Corporation, have been involved with the National Safety Council almost from our day one. But I wasn't as familiar with the National Safety Council. And when I realized what they did and the touch and reach and impact of helping people live their fullest lives and stay alive and stay whole, it just was a really nice fit for me, because for those of us who are either in the service or in the industries that provide support to the services, as I know U.S. Steel does, as Lockheed Martin, it's all about serving. It's all about making sure that people who use your products come home safely and the people who build them go home safely. So there just was a real nice logical fit there.
So what kind of work does National Safety Council do? Could you expand on that just a bit?
Sure. And as I said, you were there from the beginning, U.S. Steel. We really were born out of a time when there were some just horrific workplace-related tragedies. And the one that really spurred the titans of industry at the time to do something different was a garment factory in New York City called the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory that in 1911 had a fire, one of the deadliest in our history, literally. And 146 workers died by either jumping from the building that they were working in or by being burned in about 18 minutes. Doors were locked. There were no exits. And this tragedy really then was the origin story for creating an industry-led body, a nonprofit outside of the government, outside of a given company, that says, how do people earn a living and not have to lose their life or get injured in doing so? And our job over all of that time, more than a century, has been to make sure that we make sure people are safe at work and they are safe any place. So they bring those skills home with them. And over the time, we follow the data and just say, okay, what's the biggest issue for us right now as a society, as workplaces? So we've dealt with things like defensive driving and seatbelts and drunk driver laws. But we also advocated for OSHA at the time in the 70s. And then most recently, we look at the data, and it's brought us to some unfamiliar territory. Today, we're doing quite a bit of work around the opioid overdoses. I don't know if the folks in your organization and your listeners there, Dave, know that more than 10% of the deaths at work right now are due to an overdose at work. And those are employees. And if you talk about the customers that might be in premises like restaurants or big box stores, it's much bigger than that. So it's brought us there because the data tells us to. In California, it's 22%, if you can believe that, of the deaths at work are now from overdoses. So safety changes, and we have to change too and support our members. We have over 13,000 members, U.S. Steel, one of the first, to make sure that they have whatever tools they need to make sure that they go home at night safe and sound.
You really have a great way of engaging the board and engaging with the clients or customers or anybody involved in safety. I know you spend a lot of time with government officials, and maybe you could talk a little bit about how the culture of safety gets built and maintained. Because, you know, at U.S. Steel, we are very pleased to say that we invented the term safety first so many years ago, and it remains our mantra as part of our steel principles, our code of conduct, if you will. So I'm just very interested in this cultural aspect, because this tone, this way you work, and it involves so many different stakeholders in the process. So maybe talk a little bit about the cultures of safety, how it's built and how it's maintained.
Yeah, Dave, thank you for that question. It's really important because culture can be a kind of smushy thing. You know, it's not, metal or, an aircraft, but it can be as important, if not more important, to having that be consistent and be understood by a workforce, by any organization, of how you do work and what it means to be safe at work. We do often credit U.S. Steel for the safety first moniker. And it has carried through to the National Safety Council. Our first president of the National Safety Council was Robert W. Campbell. And he actually at one point was the chief legal counsel for Illinois Steel, which eventually was U.S. Steel, I think early 1900s. So we do have a shared ethos there. But it is challenging for some organizations because it can't be just painted on. It can't be just the slogan on your walls. And in some sense, we often say it can't just be a priority because priorities can change. So we really respect companies like U.S. Steel that make it a value, that build it into who they are, that every single person from the executives down to every employee that is working on the line in any part of the operation really knows that it's their job to ensure that they have a safe workplace, and they'll do what it takes to make that happen, whether that's to stop the line or to pick up trash where you're walking because it could be a hazard. You have to see it in every piece of the operation, and then it is part of who the organization is, not something that's painted on. A lot of companies begin every meeting with a safety moment. I know you've done those for us as being a member of our board. Companies that incentivize workers to speak up and not disincentivize that in any way, shape, or form is really important. So it's really, safety is something that isn't a check off the box. It's who you are in everything you do. And you can feel that when you walk through a plant. You can feel that when you're talking to a leadership team. And then it's part of the culture, not just something that they know they've got to do.
Well, you contact so many organizations, so many people, so you know what good looks like and what bad looks like. So what differences have you been able to observe between places that do safety first and places that don't?
Yeah. And one of the ways that we get a bead on that is that we have a perception survey that a lot of companies use, and we've benchmarked literally millions of employees in this perception survey. And it really does tell you whether or not the employees believe it. And that's really important, because if they don't believe it, then it isn't real, right? It isn't really built into their culture. And what you're really looking at is not only that it's believed and it's supported from the top to the bottom, but you see it in the data. And the data tells us every single time that safer workplaces are more productive, they are more engaged employees, they are better businesses. The ROI is there. If you actually need to convince somebody with the dollars, it's all there. You see lower workers' comp costs. You see lower healthcare costs. You see safety going home with folks. So they're having a safer life whether it's driving or their ladder behavior at home, or they're putting on safety goggles when they do the lawn mowing. All of those things result in a more engaged, healthier, supportive workforce. And when you see the opposite, when folks are not believing in safety, that translates into higher costs to get the jobs done, and more healthcare issues and more health issues for your employees, and less productivity. So you don't have to have, a government organization asking you to do it. This is something that when we see folks doing it right, they see it across the board, and it brings goodness, and it raises all the boats when you really truly have a strong safety culture and true safety first.
Yeah, well, it really makes all the difference in the world. And what we like to tell people is, there's no joy in profitability and having great profits and great profit sharing if people aren't going home safely. So it is our first priority, no doubt about it. The other thing, with all the technology changing, the generative AI, Bob Rudd, well, he had been working with you and your teams, and we have this capability that can tell people whether or not they're wearing the right PPE before they touch anything. And we've had some good success on a small scale that we need to develop more broadly. But as you think about the new technologies, they're constantly developing, and it's complex. Yet I think the future is always in the technology or the innovation space. And so, how are you thinking about using technology for safety? Especially when things are changing so very rapidly.
Yeah, that pace of change is something not only to bring promise and opportunity, but also to make sure that we're doing things with care. Dave, safety and technology have got to go hand in hand. Not only to make sure that as new technology is brought in, we do it safely, but we use that technology for safety benefits. And you talked about sensors or AI being able to recognize whether PPE is being properly worn, and whether or not there's all kinds of things a sensor can tell you, whether a person's in a safe location, and whether they're doing safe ergonomic related movements. Some of those things are here with us today. Some of them need to evolve over time. At the National Safety Council, we have an initiative called Work to Zero. It's a externally funded initiative by a company. They're actually out of Pittsburgh, a foundation that asked us to go look at the highest risk items that we have across industries, and then pair them with evolving technologies to see where we can truly try to bring fatalities down. And we'll hopefully get back to that whole issue of serious injury and fatalities, because it is the place we need to look. We need to look at the things that are going to cause the highest risk in our operations. And it's been really interesting to see the kinds of technologies that you can pair up to these risks, whether they're robotics, exoskeletons, sensors, as you just talked about, some AI that analyzes not only perhaps the sensor data, but perhaps just your data in general, to be able to give you predictive understanding of where your risks and where your next issues might be. But there's great promise there. And I would say the biggest important thing to do as you're bringing in technology is to include the people that are going to use it. Make sure they're part of the process, make sure they're part of the understanding of the technology, the pilots, because they are going to be the ones using it, and they're going to be the ones making sure that it has the benefits that we're looking for. We have looked at all kinds of technologies, even ones that can address things like potential workplace violence. There's technology for, and hopefully we never have any of that in our workplaces, but it is something that some workplaces do deal with. So I have a lot of optimism for the technologies, but I want to make sure that they're people-centered to begin with, and that the people who are going to be using them are part of that process. And I think we're going to have some really good step changes in some of the things that we can do to avoid serious risks and fatalities.
Well, your passion for this is it's contagious. I can really feel how passionate you are every time I engage with you on safety. And I know at US Steel, we're working hard to get better. And I can tell you, our folks really feel accountable. We have people that get hurt from time to time, and they admit when there's an issue, and typically they're trying to do the right thing. They intend to do the right thing, and they're doing it with a sense of urgency, and they just forget the necessary steps or don't comply with the procedure. And we need to make sure that we have that right tone so that people continue to do the best they can every day, while at the same time making safety a priority. And so it's an ongoing thing. And people's lives are busy. they have distractions at home, outside of work, and it weighs on them inside of work. And just thinking about the issues that we've talked about here, whether it be technology or the kind of culture that you create. Well, what advice would you have for us at U.S. Steel? Is there anything you say, this would be something you'd devote more attention to, maybe less attention to something, but any advice going forward here with U.S. Steel that you'd say, hey, you get after this would be a game changer?
Yeah, I do think the technology is an important one. But first and foremost, I think whether it's the pandemic, whether it's other stresses in our world right now, whether it's healthcare, childcare, the economy, anything that might be buffeting are the folks that we work with and the folks that we love, being attentive to the fact that it's a whole person that's there at work. And yes, they need to know the policies and follow the rules and make sure they're doing what's right to keep themselves and others safe. But they're also walking into work and into their life with a lot of other stuff, as we all have. And so really kind of thinking about overall worker well-being is a term that we've used. And I know that some of the government organizations are using that term as well, to recognize that someone's health, mental health, the issues of fatigue, the issues of potential substance use disorders, any of those things impact their physical safety. And when they come to work and their head isn't in the game because, I don't know, their child was sick last night, or they might be going through a divorce, or they are working 2 shifts. Any of those things cause us to have that extra alert, especially for the safety professionals and the supervisors around all those wonderful people we work with, to say, hey, Sally or Sam, I'm not sure you're all here today. Let's make sure you're not doing something that's safety sensitive. Let's stop your line personally right now. I mean, I think it's a new thing for us to be thinking about, that people are safe in many different ways, and that physical safety can be impacted by not only sort of your are you fit today, but your psychological safety. And I know, Dave, we've talked a lot about this other kind of smushy thing of making sure that people feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling safe can mean whatever it means to you, whether that means you feel safe to bring your voice, you feel safe to speak up because that someone's going to actually care. You feel safe to speak up because you're different from everybody else here and you might not feel like they want your voice. Feeling safe is being safe. And if you can't bring your voice, if you don't feel like you belong, then you're going to be less physically safe. And so are the people around you. So that makes that safety professional and that supervisor have whole new things to worry about or to concern. But I think if we think about the wellness of somebody and we think about making sure everybody feels safe to be safe, we're going to have a safer workplace environment. Dave, the other thing, and I know you've heard me share it, I get to look at the data, right? And so I get to follow the data to say, who's getting hurt at work? What are they getting? How are they getting hurt? And the data also tells me that who gets hurt is not the same. If I look at sort of 100,000 workers and the death rates, and just in 2022, so very recent data, for 100,000 workers, 3.5 are white, 4.6 are Hispanic, and 4.2 are Black. And those numbers, while they sound small, when you're talking about 100,000 workers, it's a big number. So we also have to ask ourselves, how do we create those work environments where everyone truly is safe, no matter who they are, no matter what they're packaging? Dave knows I'm 5 foot tall. It's fun to stand next to Dave. He and I look like 2 very different bookends. And I would say PPE never fit me when I was in the Air Force. PPE probably in many companies today would not fit me. So how do we make sure literally that everyone is safe? And how do we add that to the new equation of this incredible heritage that U.S. Steel has had of keeping workers safe, but now just dealing in just a little bit more with your shoulder to say, how do I make sure everyone is equally safe? And how do I make sure that everyone feels safe so that they can be safe? I don't know if I answered your question, Dave, but
No,
that's what comes to mind.
Very good. I'm glad I recorded, because I should have been taking notes on some of this. But just for me to reflect a little bit on what the word that really resonated with me, feel like you belong, this sense of belonging. And we like to foster this culture of caring. And sometimes we do well, sometimes we don't do it as well, and create this, we like constructive conflict and debate. But if you can bring your full professional self to work, I always say professional because nobody wants to see that other side of me where I'm singing in the shower, right? So, but if you can do that in a way that makes folks want to speak up, see something, say something, do something, be approachable, and build a trusting relationship with high integrity, high capability, and alignment to the same goals, I think there's a greater opportunity for people to feel like they belong, and have a sense of trust where they can bring things forward more readily. And I think that's something. It's ebbs and flows with our ability to have that, because there are stresses at work, and I know I don't always handle things the way I'd like to handle them, and I'd like to have a redo on some things in life, but I think our intention is very positive, and we do a good job telling the truth and making sure we highlight the right priorities, I think, most of the time, and we're working hard every day to get better. So I take your advice very seriously, and I'm sure our entire team will look forward to hearing your whole talk here. But any final
Dave,
words you'd like to leave us with?
Dave, just one more. I was thinking about, this, it's hard to step in. And for many of us at work, especially if we think someone might be struggling with mental health or fatigue or anything, it's hard to step in because, people have a lot of pride and it is just a tough thing. We created what we call our supervisor impairment training, and anybody can take an impairment. To us is anything that could cause someone just not to be on their game. And for your folks who are in Pennsylvania, it's free because the Pennsylvania government put a program in place that said that employers in Pennsylvania can take this training for free from us. So I just throw that out there. I know you.
Oh, that's great.
Folks all over the country and the world soon, but just wanted to let you to share that there are resources to help. The last thing I would say for all of you, just keep doing what you're doing. You've been a leader and in all of this world with us from day one. So over 100 years ago, safety holding is your most important value for every employee, and just staying open to make sure you are hearing all the voices. The definition of what safety is moves on us, unfortunately. We got to follow the data. We've got to understand the new dynamics in our world and use new technology. So don't be afraid to do new things. Do them with care. And I can't wait to see where you're going to go. And I know we'll be partnered with you for years and years to come.
Lorraine, well, thank you so very much for your leadership of the National Safety Council and for engaging with our team here today. Keep up the great job, and we'll take your advice seriously, and we'll make sure that we do highlight this opportunity in Pennsylvania for people to participate. So again, thanks so much. That's been Lorraine Martin, the leader of the National Safety Council, and a great friend of the firm, U.S. Steel, and of course myself. So now we're going to have to get back to work safely.
Steel Stories is brought to you by US Steel. To find out more about our sustainable steel solutions and how our Best for All strategy allows us to re-envision the future alongside our customers, visit www.ussteel.com. Search for US Steel in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss a future episode. On behalf of the team here at US Steel, thanks for listening.